Continuing on with Star Wars Darth Vader Dark Lord of the Sith, I turn the page to issue 5. So Jedi Master Infala is dead, and Vader now has his lightsaber. The issue opens up on a pre-recorded hologram message from the Emperor. The droid on board Vader's ship was programmed to play this message once Vader acquired a lightsaber, and the Emperor instructs Vader to go to Mustafar. It's funny how I read the Emperor's dialogue as the Emperor in my head in the Emperor's voice, but I do. The Emperor's little pep speech / instructions are well written, and I like how they're spread out through Vader's journey from Infala to Mustafar, off the ship, and into the cave where the darkness calls to him. It was like a montage sequence, where someone is giving a speech and a bunch of things are going on during the speech at different locations, camera cuts to different views, but the same speech continues to play, if that makes sense. This is a solid way to keep a story paced out well, especially on paper in a comic. Expository dialogue, detailed plans, I liked it. For whatever reason, the concept of Kyber crystals being living things still doesn't really compute in my brain. Honestly, I think it's just because I grew up with the OT, and I have a lot of headcanon, that I just can't shake, and it's completely my own issue. Sure, lightsabers have always been the weapon of a Jedi Knight, as Ben Kenobi said, but I always viewed them as kind of just another weapon in the arsenal of weapons that we saw on screen, if that makes sense. Like Civil War cavalry units swinging around sabers. There were muskets, there were swords, lightsabers were just another weapon, another tool in the universe. There were blasters, there were lightsabers. I don't know, I know that sounds dumb. Yes, that's completely wrong. Yes, that's not how it's explained further down the road, but in my brain back in the day, that's how I kind of viewed it. Kind of like how the Millennium Falcon to me was just some kit car put together with scavenged parts from a junkyard, and not a ship that was made in a factory by the Corellian Engineering Corporation, which just, to me, it's kind of boring. It's funny how much my headcanon and even real canon has changed numerous times since 1977. Like I said, it's not an issue with the stories or the explanations per se, it's just an issue I have, as do many others, with, I guess, adapting. Okay, Greedo, you got off track. So, the Emperor tells Vader to take the Kyber crystal to Mustafar, corrupt it, hear it, quote, sing the hymn of darkness, close quote, which is just a cool little line. So Vader goes into the depths, places the Kyber crystal on the thingamajig, and in a moment of hesitation, he questions what he's about to do. The issue does a good job of baiting and switching. For example, I thought this was going to be a really different story than the story I thought I was about to read, because Vader confronts the Emperor, kills him, and then begs for Obi-Wan's forgiveness. And that's just a what-if scenario, a fleeting moment of questioning his actions. When that moment is over, he says no, this is the only way, and proceeds to corrupt the crystal. And what are some of the most visually interesting panels in the series so far? A timeline of his life, of what we know to have happened to him, laid over his current position. The issue ends with Vader coming to Coruscant, interrupting a conversation between Tarkin and the Emperor talking about the weapon, the Death Star, and Vader is standing before the Emperor with his new lightsaber glowing red. What I like most about this issue was the conflict, the internal struggle, though brief, that Vader was contending with. I did for a brief moment think that the tale between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope was going to be a lot different, with an initial allegiance switch through a moment of realization, but the way that it ended was powerful. I really like this issue. Once again, Vader's silence, his march forward, just his very presence is powerful. I find myself a little detached sometimes when there's a lot of hocus pocus and magic going on, if that makes sense. I'm cool with the mystery of the Force. I love it even. It's great, the metaphysical, the overall mystery of it. But when things start getting majorly explained, overly explained for whatever reason, it takes a lot for my dumb brain to absorb it or accept it. Like when I think of crystals, and I know they're canon as canon can be now in Star Wars through the EU, through canon as of right now, but when I think of crystals, I think of like Logan's Run. I think of just kind of cheap sci-fi, if that makes sense. Oh, a crystal with magic powers. Okay. I just feels like that's been done a billion times in science fiction and fantasy. You know what I mean? Maybe I'm just cynical. I honestly think it's because when I think of Star Wars, I think of pirates, smugglers, dirt and grime, and a seedy underworld, blasters and ships. I think of the tangible. I think of the Jedi Knights with some kick-ass, sparingly used laser swords with a little fantasy sprinkled on top. This issue is one of the more visually interesting, chaos on the pages, a lot of fast lines, a lot of stuff going on. It might be my favorite looking issue so far. I have two favorite panels in this issue, both show what could have been. In Anakin's moment of regret, we see the Emperor laying on the floor, dead, and then we see Anakin remorseful in front of Obi-Wan. These two panels are my favorite. HelloGreedo, out.